I'm Kimberly, and welcome to As I've Seen It. I took quite a bit of time off from doing these recordings because my brain was melting. You can't read about the Trumps every day without your brain melting, and I just got tired and fed up. But there's too much crazy going on in the world for me not to talk about it. Way back a million years ago when I was in high school, my geometry teacher said the first thing you have to do is define things. Call them by their proper names. Use the right words. For example, everybody's talking about Donald Trump Jr. and collusion. No, conspiracy is what this really is, and that is the crime. Colluding sounds like such a nice, gentle word, but it's incorrect in this case. Conspiracy. The other place in the news recently where I wanted to call it what it really is this tragedy that happened in Greece, July 7th. A young man who had just graduated from university, Bakari Henderson. You may or may not have heard his name, but you may have heard about the American tourist killed in Greece. A lot of things have changed about this story as it's been reported, but the one thing that's been consistent is the police saying this started with him taking a selfie with the waitress. Some of the other patrons being very angry about that, they chased him into the street and they killed him. Now, this may not have rung alarm bells for people who were there, but it certainly rung alarm bells with me, and it should have with most African Americans. A young black man was killed basically for talking to a white woman. That's Jim Crow level of murder. Let's call it what it was. That was a lynching. Now, people in Greece are trying to downplay the racist aspect of this and saying, oh, no, we have these bar brawls all the time. Really, how many Americans get killed in a bar brawl? How many Americans have been killed for taking a selfie with a waitress? And then there are people in Greece who say, well, these men were Serbian. These weren't Greeks. Don't blame this on us. Well, not all of them were Serbians. And let us not forget that just a few years ago, the U.S. State Department issued a warning to African Americans who wanted to travel in Greece. Why? Because the Greek police were beating up tourists. They were rounding up what they claimed were illegal immigrants, and even when this black man presented them with his American passport, the Greek police still arrested him. And when he tried to take a picture of his handcuffs, they started beating him. So as early as 2013, the U.S. State Department issued a warning to African Americans about traveling in Greece. And it has since been scrubbed from their website, but this is what the BBC captured at the time. So people in Greece, this was a lynching. Start calling it a lynching. The American press needs to start calling it a lynching because that's what it was. The other place where we need to call it like we see it, the French president at the G20, little Emmanuel Macron, a reporter from the Ivory Coast asked him why there was no help for Africa, why was there no equivalent of a Marshall Plan to help rebuild Africa. And the French president gave a 3-minute answer that drug him all the way back to French colonialism. He actually said the problem with Africa was civilization, basically saying that Africa was uncivilized, so a Marshall Plan wouldn't work. There was no point in throwing millions and billions of dollars at Africa. The other stupid thing he said was part of the problem, part of what made some African nations so poor was that women were having 7 and 8 children. Mr. President? Could that be because of, the colonial countries imposing Catholicism on them and to this day still refusing them birth control? And thanks to your new BFF, Donald Trump, there's a worldwide gag order. Aid agencies that even mention abortion lose their American aid. Might that have something to do with this stereotype, not statistic, that you just threw at people? And the fact that the French president is being colonial and racist about Africa is really dangerous because it does not bode well for the African refugees and asylum seekers trying to get to Europe and trying to get to France. Oh, I'm sorry, these are Africans. We don't call the Africans asylum seekers or refugees. They get called migrants. So if you call them migrants, you don't have to help them. Call it like you see it. Call things by their proper names. Thanks for watching.